without the use of flash. Emergency exits are located at the sides and rear of the theater. Thank you and enjoy the performance.
Today's Marv Dunphy, a big story everywhere he has been, and certainly a success. He really brings his teams along well at the end of the season. And Marv Dunphy has been a huge proponent of this system for all of
His personality is just so solid. He's a man that looks you in the eye and you know he's telling you the truth. And I think as a player, you just respond to that type of personality.
We have to have real proactive, sharp kids, and kids are a winner. And it's tough thing to do in coaching is to get guys that want to win. These guys wanted it bad.
Also a U.S. Olympic head coach.
He's had great players all along the way. You know, he took over the national team. He already worked with the gold medal in 2010. All you're trying to do is just keep the ball rolling.
Chair right here. No worries, yeah.
Head coach of the Waves is Marv Dunphy. In his 34th season, what a fabulous job he has done here at Pepperdine.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I was a player at Pierce College, and we played Santa Monica City College, and they were much better than we were, but we battled them, and it was maybe a 5-game match, something like that. And one of the coaches, well, both the coaches at Santa Monica were Bert DeGroote and Harlan Cohen. You know, a year later, they were at Pepperdine. I learned a ton from both, and with Bert, he was retired military, and boy, everything he said, when I look back, I said, boy, he was right, he was right. One thing he told me is, if you're going to coach, remember this, you get what you tolerate. And that answers a lot of questions for coaches, for parents, and for leaders, and I use it all the time. And then beyond Pepperdine, a guy named Carl McGowan really introduced me to the science, this young science of motor learning, how to teach skill, and a guy by the name of Doug Beal, who coached 3 Olympic teams, and he was fabulous for me to bounce things off of. And he's a little bit older than I am, and so I always looked at him as kind of like the gold standard. I remember when I first started coaching, I admired John Wooden, as you know, quite a bit, and I think the first few years I tried to be Marv Wooden, and that doesn't work, and you have to be yourself. I never really knew, hey, I'm going to coach volleyball for 40 years and be around great people and some of the best players to ever play the sport. I mean, I never would have thought that. I've probably said this more than others. It's not where you are, it's who you are. It's not how big you are, it's how good or great you are. What's behind that is that we would go play for a national championship and beat Penn State, Ohio State, UCLA. We all had 45, 50,000, and here we were at 3,000. And we didn't have to be big to be good, and I always took that as a source of pride. Somebody mentioned to me last year, we had, 9 straight Olympic Games. The Pepperdine volleyball guy was in 9 straight Olympic Games, and when you're in the middle of it, you don't think about that. But looking back, that's pretty neat that we were good over time, and there's still more to come. I've stopped this phase here. And David Hunt, the program's in great shape with him, and he better not mess it up. I feel like there's still more meat on the bone for me at Pepperdine University, and something to help this university that has given me so much, and I'm fired up to do that. And but it's time for somebody else to be the head coach for 30 or 40 years. Initially, it was I wanted to be better than somebody else, and I you know, we had, I don't know, whether it's goals or a dream of, you know, winning a national championship, and you know, we won some stuff along the way, and I was part of some really good teams. But what I learned early on is it's not so much what we did, it's who we did it with and how we did it. Their disappointments are going to be my disappointments. Their joys will be my joys of the people that I was able to be around. And that ultimately is what really inspires me to this day, is that those relationships, and it's a two-way deal. I learn just as much from them and their families as they do from the staff and from myself. And I learned that early on. I learned, like, the Rigg family, all four brothers came here. And I remember the parents saying, hey, you're out of control, you know, we'll back you up, you do whatever you want. But all four won national championships in two different eras. But they gave this program heart. And I learned heart from that group. And I would say there would probably be a story for every athlete that's here. And you know, during the season especially, and during the year, we spend more time together than we do with our families. You know, throughout the day, you know, the families, you check in tonight. But they're great relationships that, yeah, I'm glad that they're all in my life. Looking back at the time, it wasn't like, hey, we have 4 Pepperdine guys here, you know, winning this gold medal. But now as I look back, I'm proud of them. To be, you know, at some point in time, the best of what they did, and you know, that's a neat. You're going back to that goofy emotion. What you really remember is who you did it with, how you did it, and this long-lasting, warm feeling that at this point in time, I just got goosebumps. At this point in time, we're the best at what we do, and that's meaningful. We've earned the right to be proud and confident. I know in coaching, you know, having success at the university level and the Olympic level, something might reflect back on Pepperdine, but in a positive way that I might have some part of, but pretty much. I've said this before, I can't imagine any other institution and their leaders being so kind to one of their employees. And they allowed me to grow up on the job and get my doctorate, coach with a couple of Olympic teams, and I'll always be grateful and to this institution and those people.
Thanks to each of you. Thanks to many of you for coming home. Some of you have not been home for a number of years, and we're delighted to have you here today. And thanks to all of you for coming to honor our good friend Marv. And I just want to say to Marv and Sue how grateful we are that you're sitting still for this, and that you're going to let us honor you in the way that we hope to this afternoon. Before I go any further today, I want to make it clear what we're not here to do. And what we're not here to do is to celebrate Marv's retirement, for he is not retiring. Our guest of honor may be stepping down from his role as the preeminent volleyball coach in America and Pepperdine men's volleyball coach. But he's going to continue to work with us, to give his time and his effort by staying on the Pepperdine faculty as a professor for undergraduate students in the sports medicine program, and to continue to serve men's volleyball as the head coach emeritus. We're delighted that Marv is going to be staying with us for the foreseeable future. What a privilege it is to work with him, and every additional minute that we get to take advantage of his wisdom and his patience, his experience, his commitment. is a privilege in our relationship with Coach Dunphy. He devoted his coaching career at Pepperdine to one sport, men's volleyball, but quite simply, Marv is Pepperdine Athletics. I don't think I can name any other person who has represented the Pepperdine Waves and its athletic programs more prominently or with more dignity and professionalism than Marv. I don't want to spend too much time simply reciting the bullet points from his considerable resume, since I know many of you can probably recite it by heart. But Marv not only led Pepperdine Athletics to its first NCAA title, the 1978 Division I Men's Volleyball Championship, he did it in his second year as a head coach, and only 4 years after earning his undergraduate degree at Pepperdine. That is remarkable. And just to show that he didn't peak too early, he also led men's volleyball teams to national championships in '85, '92, and 2005. That's a national title in 4 different decades. Remarkable history. His teams earned 8 conference championships, and in his 34 years as a head coach, fortunately all of those years at Pepperdine, 20 of his teams finished the season ranked in the top 10 nationally. In any sport, that level of success is remarkable and is simply nothing short of legendary. During that time, Marv brought success and honor not only to the campus, but to the entire nation. Through his many years of working with the United States men's volleyball team, as head coach of the team from 1985 to 1988, his national teams won every major international tournament, including the gold medal in the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, South Korea. He continued to support the men's team as an assistant or consultant coach at 4 more Olympic Games, including a gold medal winning team at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. He even worked with the women's national team in the 2012 Olympics in London, where they won the silver medal, and the 2016 Games in Rio, where they brought home bronze. Out of all of his achievements, though, the most meaningful might have come off the court. As much time and training and practice as competition demands for a program like the one he ran, Marv never lost sight of his responsibility to ensure that his players were succeeding in the classroom as well, and eventually, as you see many of them here today, succeeding in life. In fact, under Marv's leadership, the NCAA gave the Waves men's volleyball program public recognition for outstanding academic progress scores 5 separate times through the years. More than anything else, that is what we point to when we talk about Marv, and the fact that he represents everything that's great about collegiate athletics. I don't mean to be political, but it is a difficult time in sports right now. Programs in various sports are mired in high-profile investigations for everything from bribery to academic fraud, and a lot in between. And with all the money flowing into college athletics, even some of the programs that have managed to stay outwardly scandal-free are letting profits replace the welfare of the student athlete as their top priority. Marv, though, has brought great honor and respect to Wave Athletics for all of his time with us, and to Pepperdine as a whole by standing apart from all of that. You often hear people talk about winning the right way, as that's really nice but not possible in the real world. You can't compete at a high level if you just win the right way. But Marv has won the right way, and he's won an awful lot. His leadership, his strong character, and his dedication to excellence make him a pillar of not just the Pepperdine community, but of college athletics community as a whole across the nation. I could go on and on about Marv. My friendship with him is deep and profoundly important in my life. I'm grateful for what he's done for this university. I'll say a little bit more about that at the very end. But there are others here today who can speak deeply and well and personally about their coach, Marv Dunphy, their friend, Marv Dunphy. And so I'm going to introduce them all at once and then ask them to come forward one at a time. First, we will have Mr. Sean Rudy, who played under Marv from 2002 to 2005 and punctuated his Wave career with a leading role in the 2005 National Championship squad. He was also a member of that gold medal winning Olympic team in 2008 and recently served as the men's volleyball assistant coach during the 2016-2017 seasons. Following Sean will be Dr. Lee Katz, good friend to Marv and a lot of us, also professor of biology at Seaver College and vice provost for research and strategic initiatives. He will speak from his unique perspective and his friendship and observation of Coach Dunphy. Then we'll hear from Mr. Karch Karai, also a volleyball legend, who won gold medals as a member of the U.S. Olympic indoor volleyball teams in 1984 and 88, and then as a beach volleyball player in 1996. He's currently the head coach of the United States Women's National Indoor Volleyball Team. And last but certainly not least, Pepperdine Athletic Director Dr. Steve Potts will offer his own reflections on how much Marv has meant to Wave athletics. And so now, as I adjust this microphone for Sean Rooney's needs, I hope you'll give him a rousing applause, a warm welcome, as I hope you'll give all of our speakers today. Welcome, Sean Rooney.
Good afternoon. Let's get this roast started. I've never actually been the type of person that goes out and searches opportunities to speak in public. But this time is different for a couple of reasons, and one of them I should get out of the way immediately, and that has to do with the Hall of Fame dinner in 2014. I was to go and give a speech on stage. I had prepared it. They showed a video of my former teammates and coaches, and they said great things. Some of them talked trash. So what did I do? I got on stage, and I started talking trash back and audibling my speech. And if you're sitting there thinking that you could go into the Hall of Fame as a Pepperdine volleyball player without thanking Marv Dunphy properly, you'd be wrong. So Marv, thank you for that. Nailed it. The accolades speak for themselves, and I think we all know that that's not the only reason that this is a special celebration. Marv operates with a level of sincerity that, in my experience, is unparalleled. If you spent time with him, or I'm sure you have, if you're here, and you've probably spent time in his office, and I guarantee he made you feel like an insider. That insider feeling is directly linked to the tradition that is instilled in Pepperdine volleyball. Nobody's worked harder to instill that tradition and sense of history to his players. If you're with Marv from the beginning, blazing the trail, fear not, because your legacy lives on. He's used teachable moments, inspirational stories, examples of how to do things right or how to do things better next time, in volleyball and in life too. Perhaps more impressive is the relationships that he's maintained with his players. Another reason I'm happy to be here today is the opportunity to represent those players and say a few words on their behalf. Several calls come in from alums to Marv every day, and if they're not coming in, they're going out. Those conversations are meaningful, and the tradition is real. My relationship with Marv is no different. We all know he's a great coach, but above all, he's a great friend. He's been a mentor, a hero, a professor, and the list goes on, and I know I'm not the only one. Each relationship is unique. To my son Coleman, sitting here in the front row, he's Uncle Marv, and he thinks Marv's truck is awesome. I think Marv's truck is pretty cool too. And that's why, from working here, some of my favorite memories is when we'd have business in other parts of campus in Firestone Fieldhouse. You should see when we walk around into different buildings how people react when Marv pops in. They light up, they stand up, some of them scream, jump, yell, and hug him. If I was Marv, I for sure would come to One Stop every morning before I started work and just take a lap around and give myself, feel good about myself for at least until Friday. I remember one specific example. After practice, he said, "Get in the truck," so I got in the truck and we went up to the faculty Christmas party in our practice gear. Everybody was dressed up and festive and having a great time. We walked in and somebody snagged Marv for a private conversation, and the energy in the room towards me shifted a little bit. I was extremely tall, severely underdressed, and to be fair, probably eating more than my fair share of the giant shrimp. When Marv returned, smiles returned, and everything was right, and I laughed because I already knew that it doesn't matter who you are or how you're dressed. If you're with Marv, you're in the right place. Marv's journey's been one of dedication and sacrifice, and for that reason, I know I speak for every volleyball player that's ever come to Pepperdine in acknowledging and thanking Sue Dunphy. Your support of the program, Marv, and the players is incredible. I think every Pepperdine volleyball player has a special memory of you opening up your home and welcoming us with a big heart and open arms. Last little story I'll tell you is after 2005, we beat UCLA for a championship at UCLA. That's right, Coach. And Marv snagged me before we leave the locker room, and he shakes my hand and he says, "Hey, it's pretty cool that this group was able to end on a win here, Poly Pavilion." And it was the best day of my life at the time, and I said, "Yeah, because it's pretty cool." Fast forward, smash cut 3 years later, Beijing. We've won another championship. He shakes my hand and he says, "Sean, it's pretty cool that we crossed paths and we're able to do something special again." I was thinking to myself, what do I got to do here to upgrade from pretty cool? A few weeks ago, I was sitting in Marv's office and he said, "Sean, it's really, really cool that I got the opportunity to meet your family, to get close to Val and the boys, and I'm in it for the long haul with those boys." It's no surprise, I'm not saying that he slow played the conversation over the course of 15 years, but it's no surprise that Marv always delivers. What else can I say on behalf of the Waves? And Malibu Roofing Company, Marv, thank you and we love you.
Two Olympians and a frog biologist. I think there's a joke there somewhere. I think I'm one of the few people to see Marv outside of his element, so indulge, let me tell a brief story there. While Marv has been to all parts of the world, you know that. Apparently he had never been to a farm in Indiana, and somehow that had made it onto his bucket list. About 1999, Marv was helping with the national team and they had a match in the Midwest. Given our family farm was in the Midwest, I flew back to watch some volleyball and also visit family. The match concluded late that night, and I have a vivid memory. About 11 o'clock on the court, I was chatting with Marv, and out of the blue, he said, "Hey, how far is your farm from here?" I said, "Well, 2 to 3 hour drive or so." He said, "Perfect, let's go." I said, 2 to 3 hours? Well, okay, I'm gonna have to call Mom to let her know she'll be getting company about 2 a.m. And then I gotta call my older brother to let him know that he has to work Marv and me into the farm the next day. Okay, let's go. So we did not get to the farm till about 2 a.m. And my mother had gussied up the 100-year-old farmhouse the best she could in that 3-hour window. I've only recently learned, Marv, that she had found an all-night Walmart and had driven 20 miles to get a new pair of sheets for the bed. So I don't know if you appreciated them. Think back to that time. At about 4:45 that morning, my brother, who lived a few miles away, 4:45 in the morning, my brother burst through my mother's door, looks at me and said, "Where's Marv? We got farming to do." Well, Marv had been in bed for at least 2 hours, so it was time to get him out. I knocked on his door loudly and I said, "Hey, it's almost daylight, there's work to be done, and you've got 5 minutes to get ready to be a farmer." As we walked out to the central yard on the farm, there sat my brother's pride and joy. A brand new 4-wheel drive, 250 horsepower, Case International tractor, tires taller than Marv and me. And even in 1999, I'm sure that tractor was more than my brother's house. I'm guessing maybe $200,000, $250,000. I remember my brother leading Marv up the ladder to the cab of the tractor, and Marv literally, like a kid, bounding up those steps. Now, the rest of the story is somewhat disputed, but I have the scientific version. I'm pretty sure the discussion in the cab between my older brother and Marv went something like this. So Marv, here are the hydraulic controls, here's the throttle, here are the gauges, here's the three-point hitch controls. This is a very complicated machine to run. Just wait here a minute while I move some of the farm trucks out of our way, and I'll come back and I'll take you on a ride. My brother came out of the tractor cab, climbed down the ladder. Not a second after his foot hit the soil, the tractor began to pull away. I'll never forget my brother looking at me and saying, "What is he doing?" And my only reply, "Well, apparently he's going to take it for a spin." I'll never forget the look of terror in my brother's face and the biggest smile on Marv's face as he became a farmer for at least a few seconds. You will hear today about Marv-isms, and you've already heard some of them. Phrases of wisdom and thoughtfulness that he frequently uses. One that I learned early on in spending time with Marv was his notion that at times in life, you'll just know when you are in the presence of greatness. I remember reflecting on that early in our friendship, and it made sense. Here was a man that had studied, became a friend, and knew more about John Wooden than probably anybody in the world, in the presence of greatness. But I quickly realized that each and every time I rode with Marv to scout an opponent's match, or would visit with him in his office to talk about an upcoming game, I was in the presence of greatness. I just want to say thanks to Marv for the greatness he brought to the sport of volleyball, to our national teams, to the men's team here, and to the university as a whole.
Marv, you're one special guy. I didn't know much about Marv when I first started dating my future wife, Jana Miller, who came here to attend Pepperdine and play on the women's volleyball team. But I knew something was special when she asked me, do you know Marvelous? And it was Marvelous. And he had already, his reputation preceded him when he eventually, we got to know him a lot better, when he decided for the first time, and certainly not the last time, to coach the USA men's team for 4 years, where we got the extreme privilege of playing for him. Marv has so many special qualities and so many Marvisms. They come flooding back to me whenever I get to spend time with him. Things like, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And things like, every person likes to be treated completely as an individual, as a unique person, the very unique person that they are. And so he found ways, he still finds ways, he's a master at it, at inspiring people, in treating them with dignity, in inspiring them with his ability to connect with them and to share his belief in them without actually stating it. He's a master at that. So one of the things, it's still a story in our family, is both our boys came here to join Marv's volleyball camp, which has been going on for a long time, and hundreds of kids every summer for many, many years. I got to be in Marv's camp when I was 13 years old in 1974 at Cates School in Santa Barbara. And he inspired me then. And I didn't know anything, and I just a punky little 13-year-old kid with long hair and a whole lot to learn.
But it's a great story in our family when one of our boys was playing here, and the easy thing to do to try to make a connection with somebody is just tell them what a great play they made. But he finds a way to inspire people with his belief in them. And so one of our sons hit a ball in camp, and Marv, instead of saying that, he just said, "You know what? Your dad's won a lot of trophies taking swings like that." And it was masterful, and it continues to be masterful. 3 years ago, our USA women's team, after 52 years of competing internationally, we won our first ever major championship. The majors are the Olympics, as Sean mentioned, and the World Championships and the World Cup. And our women's team won the World Championships. And I don't think it's an accident that Marv was a part of our group, a part of our bench coaching staff. And both our setters in that tournament, thanks for setting the bar high, Marv, said, "We have never had a coach help us believe in ourselves so much. This is the most confident I've ever played as a player." And so he does set the bar high, and he figures out ways to make connections with people. And that's what it's really about for Marv, is just, it's people. It's not really about the volleyball. Just like one of his role models, the same thing could be said for John Wooden. It's not really about the sport, it's about the lessons and the people, and helping every person in that sport, every person in that team, learn important lessons about themselves, lessons that go far, far beyond volleyball. Certainly he's a mentor in that way. Also, we have a player on our team who, when Marv first came around, she was kind of like, "God, who is this? I haven't had much experience with him before." And after a few conversations, she, as all of our players are, and we're so lucky to have him spend the time that he's spent with us, but as all of our players are, just thrilled to have him spend the time that he gets to, and that he shares with us. And she said, "Every time," this is a direct quote, "every time I spend time with Marv, I hear something important, I learn something important." Again, set the bar high for me. Thank you, Marv. And it's a great bar to aspire to as a coach. He's also said one of the best things about head coaching, maybe the best thing, is that you get to surround yourself with good people. And that's the good fortune that I have as head coach of the women's team, is I get to bring Marv in to try, when he has some spare time, to infect our program with goodness. And I just consider myself an incredibly lucky person to have had a coach, a teacher, a mentor, and a friend like Marv. It's a special person that makes you want to be, and hopefully helps you actually accomplish becoming a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better leader, a better mentor, a better teammate. And one of the great things about volleyball, or all of sports, is it teaches you these lessons about teammateship. I think of the ultimate teammate as a teammate who makes every single person around him or her better. That's the kind of person that I would want to have on any team that I coach, and I would want to have as a part of any team that I'm with. And Marv really is the ultimate teammate. So thank you for all you've done, Marv, for coaches around the country, around the world, students, teachers, players, and for our sport, and just the kind of person that you've shared in all of your endeavors. Thank you, Marv.
38 years ago, I found my way to this campus as a first-year law student, and I vividly recall Dean Ron Phillips at our first-year orientation and his admonition to, quote, make square corners, unquote. Think about that. In the construction of a building, if the foundation is not precisely square, then it's doomed to fail. As every succeeding floor is added, the defect becomes more exaggerated. The square corners ensure a solid foundation that will stand the test of time. I stand here today convinced that Marv Dunphy makes the squarest corners of anyone I've ever known. The idea that there's a right way to do things and that there's no compromising that idea screams Marv Dunphy to me. There are no shortcuts in building character, in building integrity, in building championship teams, and in building and sustaining a culture that significantly impacts and enriches the lives of countless students along the way. In making those square corners, Marv Dunphy sets standards and maintains an unwavering commitment to those standards. He lives his life accordingly, and having learned along the way that you get what you tolerate, Marv would tolerate nothing less. All those who played for him knew that, and knew that they would be held accountable to those standards. Learning that life lesson for them, I'm guessing, was invaluable. One could conceivably argue that that alone was the greatest gift that Marv gave all those young men. I've often said that the least important thing that Marv did at Pepperdine was coach volleyball. Each and every one of his 34 years that Marv had led our men's volleyball team, each and every one of those years was successful. Whether those seasons ended with a national championship or fell just short, whether they ended with a conference championship or fell just short, the fact that Marv had such a significant impact on the lives of all those young men that he coached made every season a resounding success. So on behalf of my athletic director predecessors who had the distinct pleasure of serving with you, Marv, namely Bob Thomas and Wayne Wright and John Watson, and on behalf of all the coaches and staff members that you influenced along the way, thank you, Marv, for giving yourself to Pepperdine men's volleyball, to Pepperdine athletics, and to Pepperdine University. We sincerely and gratefully appreciate it. And finally, and personally, serving as the Director of Athletics at Pepperdine has been somewhat of a dream for me. The incredible relationships with coaches and staff members and student athletes, the thrill of victories and even the agony of defeats have left wonderful and indelible marks on my memory. But you know, if you were to take all those things and remove them, and if all that was left from my experience here was the opportunity to serve alongside of and to learn from Marv Dunphy and to have the opportunity to call him my friend, then the experience would still be among the greatest of my life. So once again, thank you, Marv, for everything.
Share was one of my favorite stories. I got a call from a teacher said I need to talk to you about one of your players, and this is prior to the national championship. And all of a sudden my heart sunk, like, what happened here? And she said, hey, he went to every student in the class and said, we're playing, you know, SC tomorrow night, and you have to be there. It's in the stone, you have to be there, and so on and so forth. And he even told me I had to be there. And I said, a little side of me, I said, well, how's he doing in your class? And she says, that's the problem. He's not in my class. himself so much, this is at university level, not junior high, high school, that he would go around and tell people they had to do it. And when he was here, we were second, first. And did I teach him that? No, I was smart enough to get him here. But I hope everybody has a Mike Fitzgerald on their team. I can think about that. Biggest lesson I've learned in coaching. I want to say something smart, philosophical. Yeah, you know, I'd say this. In this process, you have to be in the ballpark with talent. And yet, what I found that works here, and David Hunt actually mentioned this the other day, is that you want to be in the ballpark with talent, but you have to have character. And you have to be with kids that are squared away. There are opportunities, probably in every endeavor, to take shortcuts or to do things that aren't acceptable or to a high standard. And so I always want our staff and our players to do things right. And there's a championship standard for everything that we do. I think, you know, coaching is about meeting those standards. It was the group in the mid-70s that really set the standard for, hey, here's how it's done. And then in the 80s, we had great talent. The 90s, George Romaine, and then all of a sudden, Sean Rooney, Paul Carroll, Jonathan Winder. But it was probably that group, the 78 Waves, that group kind of set the standard that we refer to, I think, and I will refer to. That group, whenever there's a reunion, they all go to it, and pretty tight group. I've always tried to live a full day, and I'm not being philosophical here, but I've always liked the early morning. I would see the landscaping crew here at PEP, and I always like to see who did stuff well, and then, you know, get to know them, acknowledge them, and thank them. And I'm thinking of Margarito Alleman, who was here for years with the landscaping department. And when he retired, I think they hired 5 guys to take his place because he was so good at what he did. And it's always been neat for me at this institution to see people who are good at what they do. Sarah Jackson, Hung Lee, Doug Hurley, Lee Katz. I could go on and on, Margarito Alleman. They're good at what they do, and I admire that. When I got here, I was a little bit older, Pierce College, in the Army in Vietnam vet, and one day at, I think it's Jerry's Tree up near the plaza, fall of '72, and this guy says, "Hi friend, Bob Thomas." And I think he was the dean of students then, and he had cowboy boots on and slacks and, you know, a jacket, and we became lifelong friends. And that handshake was awesome. He was helping in the athletic department, and he made volleyball full time, and everybody knows when somebody's pulling for him. And it's, for me, it started with Bob Thomas. Obviously the coaches and volleyball people, but Bob Thomas, and then Gary Colson, Wayne Wright, John Watson, Steve Potts, and then the leadership of Pepperdine. It was just been great, you know. Howard White, David Davenport, Andy. Andy has pulled for me as much as anybody I know, and I'll always be grateful for that. I have a little binder, 3-ring binder, you know. I'm old school with every guy that's played here, and I enjoy staying in contact with them, but one of the neat things about retiring is that it gave me this really neat opportunity to thank all the people that were part of this journey. And each call, you know, took about 20, 30 minutes, but it was an awesome 20 to 30 minutes, and I enjoyed it. Mike Beacon started this endowed scholarship for men's volleyball, and I would like to, get the alums to give back to that and allow this program to be at the very top in every way. If they played here, I'll twist the arm a little bit. Hey, some people came before you. Some people made this possible. And it's their turn to get back.
So, my friend Marv, he would say, you know what? If I had shoulders like these, I would still be playing volleyball.
If I had shoulders like that, I'd still be playing.
If I had an arm like that, I would still be playing.
I think we're good here. Hey, they got King Kong over there.
Golden retrievers, great pets, terrible walkers.
Wings don't get sick. Go as hard as you can for as long as you can.
How does it feel to look down upon the village when you're a giant?
I think we're more like this.
Waves are tough.
Get up or get out.
You're either getting better or you're getting worse.
You're either getting better or you're getting worse.
What kind of weather is this? Waves weather?
I like the ranking system. I still use it in broadcast today. I'll break it out here and there. There's Old World, King Kong, Medium, and Doggy. That's it.
You know what? You don't know till you go.
Hi, Coach Dunphy. Can't thank you enough for all you did for me over these years. You're the gentleman, old gentleman I've ever met. Can't thank you enough for all you've done for me and Pepperdine volleyball.
You once told me that in coaching, you do more good than you know. So I'd like to say that as a person, a parent, a coach, an American, you have done more good than you know.
What do you say, Marv? I think we're good here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our honoree and our good friend, Marv Dunphy.
Everybody here has either been part of the men's volleyball story here at Pepperdine and or part of my coaching journey. And on behalf of David Hunt and Pepperdine men's volleyball and myself, thank you and gratitude for the roles that you've played. And those shirts that some of you have a flag on the sleeve. And along the way, people would ask me, what's with the American flag on your uniforms and jerseys and practice gear and sweats? And I used to explain my reasons, and then I got a little bit older, and they'd say, well, why the flags? And then I would say, why wouldn't we have the flags on these uniforms? I always enjoyed sharing that. Steve, thanks for the kind words, and the great line of athletic directors. I was allowed to work with Gary Colson, Bob Thomas, Wayne Wright, John Watson, and Steve Potts. And it's almost like for every one of you here and every AD that I worked with and every player, there's a story and a memory and something that'll last for a lifetime. Obviously, I have 5 minutes to cover 40 years, so I can't mention everybody. But I'll just share this. I remember with Wayne Wright, I'll be forever grateful, Wayne, because you allowed my players to help you in 1978 paint the Firestone Fieldhouse, so I appreciate that. John Watson has helped me throughout my career, and Bob Thomas is a friend for life, as you know. And you know what, in addition to the athletic directors, I'd like to thank all the coaches that were part of this journey, coaches in other sports. And I know Tom Asbury is here today, and you know, the leadership here allowed me to go away and come back and be part of some good stuff. And Tom Asbury was always here to keep me in check, and he'd ask me, hey, who have you beaten today? And I go around saying that to other coaches. Sean and Lee and Karch, thanks for standing up for me, and appreciate your friendship. And with Sean, I think of, you know, when I'm watching him here, I thought of great coaching, and it was something like this in 2005 as we're competing for a national championship. It would go like this: we'd pull the troops in for a timeout, and I'd say, hey, let's trap this outside hitter. He's the only guy that's bothering us right now. Serve the two seam. Then I'd take Jonathan Winder aside and I'd say, set Rudy. And this is great coaching, right? And another timeout. Hey, let's spread in the 3 hitter rows and be good on your hitters. Be good at the pins. Pull Winder in. Set Rudy. I didn't want to say that in front of the other guys, but we played, in Sean's senior year, we played 7 5-game matches. That's a short version for those of you that don't know of the sport, of the game. And you're not always guaranteed, the better team is not always guaranteed to win. We won all 7, mostly by Jonathan Set Rudy. So Coleman, you have a great dad. Val, you have a great husband, and I have a great friend. I appreciate that. Lee Katz, I kind of agree with that version, but I thought that your brother said, hey, you're welcome to take it for a spin. And it was so smooth, it was like driving a Zamboni. And I'm glad I got it back in one piece. So our sport is a little over 100 years old, and the first 100 years, the International Federation selected Karch Fry as the best player in the first 100 years, and I was allowed to coach him, and he's the most ferocious character I've ever coached, and to me, the most loyal and caring person I know. I appreciate you, Karch. Andy, President Andy Benton. Debbie, I hope we don't get in trouble with this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I'm sitting with Debbie upstairs at Firestone Fieldhouse, just the 2 of us, watching the athletic event, and the discussion came, you know, what do we do during the winter break when you train our team? I said, we practice, eat, practice, lift, and so on and so forth. And she says, why don't you come over to the house? And I said, okay. And so we went for dinner. All 20 of us stayed overnight, and we had breakfast. But prior to us coming there, she said, how are you and how are your players with dogs? And I said, we love dogs. And I said, one of the ways I evaluate people is where do their pets, and mostly where do their dogs sleep? And I said, Debbie, where do your dogs, 2 black labs, I think it's Toby and Scout, where do they sleep? She says, I can't tell you that. And I said, Debbie, it's just the 2 of us here. You can tell me. And she said, well, they both jump up on the bed, and I'm from Texas, so I kind of, you know, give one a nudge and it goes off. And I said, what about the other one? She says, Andy would not like me to tell this. And I said, it's just the 2 of us. This is a black lab. Andy lifts up the covers, and the black lab sleeps all night at their feet under the covers. My admiration and respect for Andy was always here. I've always admired his friendship, but it just went up a notch with that story. So in 1972, there was no Charlie Reynolds athletic complex here. There were just dirt pads, and we practiced anywhere in Southern California. And so people were asking me, where'd you practice in 72, 73? St. Monica's, Santa Monica, Palisades High School, just about anywhere. And it was probably my favorite year in volleyball, because those teammates, a few of them are here, Mike Graham, Mike Bettinghouse, Bill Colburn. It just, we formed a really neat bond. And Bert DeGroot and Harlan Cohen, we had to carry all the volleyballs and sometimes the nets in our cars to practice. So the very first practice we went to, it was my job, along with this other guy, to take the volleyballs to the gas station and get them pumped up. And this guy says, hey, I'm Jeff. And I said, hey, Marv. And then he says, hey, Marv, you look a little bit older. You know, what's the deal? And I said, well, I was at Pierce Junior College and I was in the Army in Vietnam. And he drops the volleyballs and he said, did you kill anybody? And I said, I'm not sure. Why? And he says, because I couldn't play on a team with somebody that killed somebody. And I said, I get it. And he lasted about a week. And so Bert DeGroot was retired military. And I got this, you get what you tolerate from Bert. And the other guy, an Olympic coach in 1968, Harlan Cohen, taught me a ton about the technical side of the game. But one of the things that I thought, I also learned kind of what not to do, because Harlan tolerated too much. So my first year here, I was an assistant coach, and a player, lifelong friend, Marty Nora, kills the ball, goes back to serve, and Harlan puts it in Mike Beacon's for him. Marty, instead of like going up and doing a transition, goes right to the end of the bench. And I got a little fired up and I went back and I said, Marty, what's up? And he says, how do you think I feel? I kill the ball and then Harlan puts Beacons in to serve for me. And I said, how do you think Beacons feel standing down there waiting for you? And I said, if it's up to me, Marty, you not only would you not play anymore in this match, you may never play at Pepperdine again, you know, to try to have a little impact with him. And I went and I sat down next to Harlan and he said, what's up with Marty? And I said, Marty doesn't want to play anymore. And Harlan gets all fired up and he says, well, we won't play him. And we didn't, and Marty learned a great lesson. So to this day, Harlan doesn't know about that story. And by the way, Harlan he's in a little bit of a struggle health-wise, but I think he's going to outlive all of us. 1977 to 2017, and it's 40 years in 5 minutes, and I don't know if it's possible to turn the lights on. Can we get the lights on here? There's some rationale behind that. Yeah. What I'd like is all the current players, former teammates, guys that have played here, all the alums, coaches, statisticians, trainers. If you're here, please stand up. You heard it on the video, yeah. Your joys are my joys. Your disappointments are my disappointments. And that's lifelong. And I just want to say how proud I am of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marv, for those words and a lot more, for all you've done, for all you're still doing for the university and will do in the years ahead. You've You've given Pepperdine, its students, and the entire university community more than we could have ever hoped for. And your friendship is chief among those gifts. Speaking of gifts, we have something more that we want to give to you. Your group of fans and admirers, indeed your Pepperdine family, have come together and done something that I think is extremely generous and only right. You've left your mark, your imprint on this campus in so many figurative ways, but your fans and my wife and I count ourselves as two of those who hold you in very high regard, feel that you deserve to have a literal mark, a physical mark on this campus as well. And so we're going to do that. This effort arose in a very short period of time, maybe a month or less. And your friends, many of whom are in this room over the course of the last month, have amassed enough funding that we're going to establish the Marv Dunphy volleyball court on the playing surface in Firestone Fieldhouse in your honor. Who've given to that project. I want to thank Mike Beacons, who is not here today, but I want to thank Joe and Terry Rokas. They are here today. I haven't seen Gary and Susan Wilcox. They've been very generous in this project. John and Celeste Pluger are here today, and Amy Jo Runnels, the widow of the much-loved Charlie Runnels, is here today, and the Runnels family's made a very generous gift together, as I said, with a lot. And to the sound booth, I'm going to take this microphone and walk across the stage, so it's coming out. And let's walk over here. And we are going to unveil the plaque that we placed in Firestone Fieldhouse, denoting the Marv Dunphy volleyball court. Why don't the two of you gentlemen remove that? And you can't read it from where you are, but I'm going to read it for you. Dr. Marv Dunphy has been a member of the Pepperdine family since the early 1970s, a tenure in which he served as a student athlete, an assistant coach, the head men's volleyball coach for 34 seasons, a professor and a mentor. Thanks to his commitment to the program and his players, the Waves won 4 NCAA championship titles under his guidance. Marv created a culture that led his student athletes to embrace and embody the Pepperdine mission of purpose, service, and leadership. Second paragraph. Coach Dunphy's Waves, or Marv's Army, as they were commonly known, have had success on the international and collegiate volleyball stages as both players and coaches, as well as prestigious careers outside of volleyball. His leadership, character, and integrity on and off the court will forever be cherished by his players, co-workers, and those who know him. Finally, Pepperdine University is pleased to pay tribute to Marv's extraordinary service and his many contributions to the life of Pepperdine athletes by naming Marv Dunphy Volleyball Court in his honor, dedicated this day, October 15, 2017. And thanks to all who participated. Student athletes, coaches, fans, many generations to come will know of your indelible impact on this university, not just in athletics, but on the lives of the men and women who came under your tutelage and who had the privilege of getting to know you. And I know that Steve Potts and I consider ourselves two of those who are most blessed. We're getting close to the point where I can say we're good here. But we've got one more thing I think we want to do, and our athletic director is going to take the microphone and handle that for us.
Yeah, I'd just like to say this. You know, I've already acknowledged the guys that I played with, the guys that I coached, and people that coached with me, and you know, a chunk or a piece of this. Each and every one of you is a part of this, and I think you know that, but I'm telling you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One more favor we'd like to ask from all of you. We'd like to ask all of you to stand.